I used to feel like I was missing out if I didn't have the latest plugins that everybody's talking about, all the YouTubers, so I would buy them. I'd download hundreds of them just to realize that I didn't even know how they work. Sometimes I didn't even hear the difference. My music got worse and worse, and I was spending more time actually acquiring plugins than making music.
Does this sound familiar? Are you drowning in plugins and still not making any music? Let me tell you why less is more, especially when it comes to music production. So here's the thing, your DAW comes packed with all the presets and all the plugins and effects and tools that are really more than enough to create a fully professionally sounding beat, from the beginning till the end. So maybe downloading more and more plugins will not necessarily solve your problems. Maybe there are some other things that you should be doing, especially at the beginning of your music production journey, when you're learning, when you're starting out. And the plugin makers will probably hate me for this video, but Uncle Business wants to help you, not them. So in this video, I'll go through 7 types of plugins that I think you shouldn't really get, especially when you're starting out. And I will drop some names, so shots will be dropped. So shots will be shot. Shots will be fired. Shots will be fired. But don't get me wrong, I have nothing against these plugins. I use quite a few of them and I think they're really professional tools. Just they can get a little bit complicated and carry you away from what's really important when you're starting out. So learning music theory, learning the basics, learning the basic effects and whatever your DAW comes with. And number 7 will be a little bit controversial and I will need your opinion on that. So make sure to stick till the end. You don't want to miss that. Okay, so let's get into it. Number 1, complex synthesizers with overwhelming interfaces. Serum, Pigments, even Free Vital. Does it ring any bells? Yes, they are super cool, super powerful, but they are really complicated, especially when you're starting out. There are so many things to learn. What can you do instead? Try to learn some simple things, simple synthesizers like Ableton's Drift or any stock synthesizer that you might have at your disposal. Also, you can go to Ableton's Synth School. I will drop the link in the description box down below, where you can actually learn how the synthesis works. So the simple stuff, simple blocks. But your stock DAW synthesizers are more than enough to create really cool effects. Example given here. Number 2, analog emulation plugin bundles, like Arturia V Collection, Waves Abbey Road bundle, or GeForce Heritage Synth bundle. Why to avoid? First, cost. They cost quite a lot, even up to $600, $700, $800 sometimes. And second thing is, there's way too many options, especially for a beginner. What are the chances they will need 70 different synths when you're starting out? Just get the basics done, get to work with whatever you have, just the simple stuff. When you feel like you know something about sound designing or synthesis, maybe start with something more complicated, but you will be really surprised what the stock drift synthesizer in Ableton can do without even any effects. So try to learn these first. These are super important, getting basics right. Number 3, specialized effects plugins like granular synthesis or spectral effects. Examples: Granulator 3 or Granulator 2, Portal by Output, or Crystallizer by Soundtoys. Why to avoid? These plugins can create super interesting and cool textures, but are quite niche, so maybe there's a chance that you might also invest your music or time into learning something else like music theory. And on the other hand, these are quite complicated to get really good results. You really need to spend time learning how the granulator works, finding best texture to throw at it, and just to get even better textures out of it. So that takes time, that takes practice. Sometimes all these effects are not worth doing because they at the end of the day don't fit in the mix. Instead, try to get a handle of simple effects like reverb, really master it, or EQ or saturation. These are super powerful blocks, building blocks. Then if you learn these, you can really create super cool textures on your own. Number 4, convolution reverbs. If you are already talking about reverbs, don't get yourself stuck into convolution reverb at the beginning. They are super cool with really good textures. Examples will be Waves, IR1, or Altiverb, or Ableton's convolution or hybrid reverb. They create super cool textures, super long tails, and really juicy reverbs, but it is really difficult to find the perfect reverb sound that will fit into the mix and will not make it all messy or muddy. And understanding how to choose the perfect IR really takes time to learn to be able to do it right. Alternative choices, just really try to go back to the stock reverb and just to see what you can achieve with that. Learn how the reverb works in the mix, what does it do, how does it push the sound in and out. Take time learning the basics, and when you will need to use the convolution reverb, you'll be ready for it. Number 5, pitch correction tools like Autotune or Melodyne. They are still quite difficult to use and still quite pricey, so maybe you don't need to get them at the beginning. Also, try, which is the most important, to get the performance right. If you do the right singing, right notes, right pitch, you will not need to fix anything. It's like making a photo. You can clean the mess to make a photo, do the photo, or you can delete the mess in the Photoshop. But if you have 20 photos and in each single one you have to delete the same mess, it really takes much less time to clean this room in the first place than fixing it in post. The same as with the recording. Try to get the perfect recording, then you will not need to correct anything. Now we're getting into heavy stuff. Number 6 will be advanced mixing plugins. Examples like FabFilter Pro MB, Isotope Neutron, or Wave C6. These are super cool plugins that will help you to mix the song properly, but mixing is not that easy. It's not just slapping a plugin or any kind of given formula and just to achieve a great result. Sometimes you need to understand what do you need to do and why do you need to do. And these plugins will think for you. They will actually think for you. You will not need to think anything. You will just slap it. They will just work, better or worse. Many times I've had to delete all my Neutron instances because they were not doing what I wanted them to do. So better is to understand how does the mixing work in general. So gain staging, like the stereo imaging, and also how to compress things if they even need to be compressed. Sometimes it's really not necessary. Very important is the EQ, how to cut frequencies, which frequencies to carve and which to left out, just to not make too much mud and just to make everything crystal clear. And also composition. If you do the right composition, the song mixes itself. Then also when the plugin thinks for you and makes things without your knowledge what it does, you're really lacking this opportunity to learn and train your ear, because you need to hear what's happening. You need to hear the compression, you need to hear EQ, what does it do, why does it do it that way. If you do everything with AI, it will just make something, but you will have no control over it. Alternative will be just starting with simple mixdown, get your levels right, get your panning right, and then try to do some EQing first, just to make room for each instrument individually. And then if needed, compress, limit it at the end, and you have the really good sounding mix that you did yourself. And you can always go back and fix this or that because you know what you're actually doing. Also, what are the plugins that you really regret downloading? Let's say you paid loads of money for it and you're not using it at all because it ended up to be really a waste of time. Let me know in the comments down below. And if you already got that far, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like that. And not only, also some super cool tutorials. And number 7, mastering plugins, self-mastering plugins, like Slate Digital FGX Lander mastering plugin or super famous Isotope Ozone, because these plugins are just like a magic box. They will listen to your sound and apply something. You don't really know what they did, but it sounds better. But does it really? They did a proper loudness, but how do they achieve it? What's the sacrifice? Maybe you want to learn it yourself, because as we were speaking in the previous step, if we did the mix right, there's really not much needed to be done in the mastering. Sometimes you have like a couple songs, I have 5 or 6 songs, they need to sound cohesive like one album. Then yes, you have to throw them to some kind of mastering so as to match all these EQs and everything and all the characteristic of the album, so they sound like they come from one studio, not like from 5 different ones. Because in general, mastering requires a lot of ear training and knowing how the EQ work. If there is a compression or a gain staging needed, you really need to have a control over that. Also lots of metering, measuring, just to get these levels right for all the releases, like CD release or streaming release. They will be slightly different. What you should try first is to get the mix right. If the mix is right, you don't really need to do much. But if you're already there, you want to try a little mastering, try simple stuff, limiter, try to see what does it do, how does it work, if there's compressor needed, maybe like the glue compressor to glue elements together. But maybe I'm wrong with that. So comment your thoughts in the comment box down below, because if you're starting out, there is so many things to learn about, like getting the right instruments, learning how to play the instruments or the piano or whatever, or even just how the piano roll works or all the music theory. The chances are that your first song will not hit the top charts. So maybe if you did the mix down and the mix that it actually sounds really good here and there, maybe you can just use the Isotope Ozone just to get this song out to the world. That kind of plugin can fix some of the mistakes that you've done on the way. But I think at the end of the day, the most important is to be making more and more and more music and releasing it all the time, not essentially sitting in the studio for like days and weeks trying to master one thing. Maybe that's the better way to do. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about that. Okay, but let's go back for a minute. I'm not saying that all the plugins are bad and you should stick to only the stock DAW plugins. I don't think anybody does that, to use only stock DAW plugins to make the music. So are there some kind of plugins that are really worth investing in or worth downloading? Maybe the free ones, especially for the beginners? And I think there are. Actually, there are quite a lot of plugins that you definitely should get as a beginner, and they will really help you in your music production. And in order to find out which plugins, you really should watch this video next. Now remember, the best way to learn is to dive in and start creating. So the shiny plugins will always be waiting for you. When you're ready, you can download them. But until now, try to master what you've got, and you'll really be surprised what effects can you achieve. Thanks so much for watching, and see you guys next video. Cheers!